What's good, y'all, man? We got Deadpool Wolverine, all Easter eggs breakdown, plus in it explain. Yeah, but yeah, I just saw it yesterday on the Tuesday. 10 out of 10. Though. It was a good movie though, my opinion. It was good. It was funny. A lot of shit happened in the movie though. A lot of cameos that I didn't expect that's gonna come. You know what I'm saying? Even though that trailer, they was like showing that trailer, it's a lot of shit. You feel me? That, you know what I mean? There's a lot of shit in the movie though. A lot of cameos. But if you did watch, let me know comment below. If you did, let me know. If you didn't, and then don't watch the video because it's gonna be spoilers. You feel me? But eventually, y'all probably watched it already. You know what I mean? So but yeah, we got the Easter eggs, and then explain, and yeah. They have Task the OG, Task Force, Johnny. You know, they got a lot. Man, it's a lot of shit. A lot of shit though. 10 out of 10 for me. 10 out of 10. Oh shit. But yeah, let me know y'all rate the movie though. Let me know comment below.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Everything Always. My name's Michael Roman, aka Allfires. Now, I think it goes without saying, if you're clicking on a video for 101 Easter eggs in Deadpool and Wolverine, and you haven't seen the movie yet, this is not the place for you. I ain't mad at you, but back out now, go see the film. It literally dropped today, then come back and see us, because not only will there be major spoilers ahead, but we're going to try to attempt to uncover every corner, every Deadpool Easter egg, everything we saw and could find, well, after our very first watching. And I know that a video like this would probably be better served if I went back and saw it 3 or 4 times this weekend. Oh, and I'm going to, but the truth is by the time that this posts on Thursday when it's releasing in the US, it will have already been out for over a day in other parts of the world, and there were still frames and information from this movie leaking out on social media yesterday. So the disclaimer's out there, the spoiler warning has been issued. If you guys want to be entered for the PlayStation 5 giveaway, which is actually in tomorrow's video, super simple to be entered to win. Just hit the sub button, then leave a comment down below. Also, my band Allfires is playing our very first show in Atlanta, Georgia on September 1st. So if you live in the area or you plan on being in town for one of the million things going on that weekend like Dragon Con, tickets are cheap, only 15 bucks, but limited. So we would love to see you guys at the show. I'll leave a link down in the description and in the comments. And if you do come by, make sure to stick around after the set and say hi. I'll definitely be hanging out. Okay, so the film opens with the normal Marvel Studios logo roll, except now they've added Deadpool in a couple of spots alongside a lot of the other new characters from Phase 4 and Phase 5, like Lady Thor, and at the last moment, before it actually cuts to Deadpool himself narrating the intro, the logo turns to red and yellow for Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, his intro monologue is meant to just call everything out and put it all on the table, them buying Fox, the rights dispute, him getting
He was talking about,
his own franchise. He calls Marvel stupid. It's kind of hilarious, and then again puts it right out there. How are we going to do a Deadpool and Wolverine movie without dishonoring Logan's legacy? And he straight up says, we're not. And the movie opens with him in what he refers to as downtown North Dakota, but really the Canadian wilderness, digging up Wolverine's dead body.
Yeah, I was saying that shit was crazy.
From the end of Logan, because he is convinced that this isn't how regenerative healing factor works, and then finds Logan, as he says, very passed away in what's maybe one of the funniest jokes in the entire film. And then as he's confronted by a ton of TVA agents, which he backtracks in order to explain why they're there, uses Logan's dead skeleton coated in adamantium as a weapon to almost the entire song of NSYNC's Bye 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 for the opening credits.
Bye bye bye. Nah, he was dancing that shit though. That intro was going crazy.
Small Easter eggs I want to point out. The first one is that when the TVA agent first addresses Deadpool, he calls him by his full name, Wade Winston Wilson. And when Deadpool gets Wolverine's claws and actually tries to use them, this is an Easter egg for Deadpool vs. Old Man Logan #3. Now, it happened
was in the comic books type shit.
Much different in the comics, but I couldn't help but notice how similar some of this imagery was. Now, in order to explain why the TVA is after Deadpool and Deadpool is looking for Wolverine, he does a backtrack to the day he says it all changed. We see him basically where we saw him last, and they replay quickly through the post-credit scene. I for Deadpool 2. However, the day he's referring to is March 14th, 2018. Now, this is interesting on a lot of levels we'll talk about in just a second, but to set the scene, he is now in the office of Happy Hogan at the Avengers compound in upstate New York. Remember, 2018, and this is taking place in March. Now, because I have the latest official timeline book, I made sure to consult it so that I didn't get this wrong, but the events of Avengers Infinity War take place in spring, or rather May. Thanos snaps in May of 2018. So this is just months before when we would have had absolute chaos in the MCU.
Damn, so it's like months. So he was like, so pretty much they was there though, the Avengers, when he came to Happy Hogan.
So when they're referring to Tony Stark being alive and during this conversation, it's because he is. This is right.
Oh, because he was alive at the type shit.
Before Infinity War happens. Now, another thing about this office of Happy Hogan, there are so many MCU Easter eggs in here. I was frantically taking notes as I walked.
Hey, no, it was a lot though. It was a helmet. It was a lot of shit.
Over Happy Hogan's left shoulder, a copy of the Forbes magazine with Pepper Potts on the front. To his right, you will see the set of Captain America baseball cards from the first Avengers film. Also, a Mark II silver helmet. You'll also see on the shelves in the other part of the office that he has the suitcase from Iron Man 2, and behind them on the windowsill is the prototype Captain America shield from Iron Man 2 that he asked Coulson to help prop up the piping before he creates a new element. We also see the proof Tony Stark has a heart statue that Pepper made for him sitting on the desk, and it's just a small detail, but there are a couple of things that give away that this might actually be Tony Stark's office, with Happy Hogan sitting at Tony Stark's desk and not actually Happy Hogan's office. But I think probably the craziest and biggest Easter egg in that entire office is the Iron Man mask.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, it probably was.
Sitting to the left of the door and behind Deadpool. They show it several times as he's going to leave the office after Happy Hogan has basically broken his spirit and told him to learn his place on the totem pole. Keeps moving his hand down as he does it. But there is an Iron Man mask that is a kid's costume mask. It's the same mask that Peter Parker is wearing in Iron Man 2 when Iron Man saves him. Incredible, incredible Tom Holland Spider-Man Easter egg. Also, honorable mention, there's what looks like a Mobius strip statue sitting on the shelving as well. Keep in mind, that would be an Easter egg for Tony Stark using the Mobius strip years from now in Avengers Endgame to invent time travel. This is way before that. Now, speaking of which, again, without any explainer how this time travel device became a multiverse timeline hopping device, we'll just assume that whatever Negasonic Teenage Warhead did to it, it actually changed its function. He goes from the 616 actor being rejected by the Avengers back to his timeline, which is the Fox timeline, and we now know has the designation of Earth 10,005. Now, we learned from this...
Yeah, that's what they call for Fox, 10,005.
Quince, that basically, because he was rejected from the Avengers, he's hung up the Deadpool costume. He's selling cars at what the play on in the movie is Drive Max. It's obviously their parody of CarMax, and we've seen this part of the movie a million times played out in the trailer. The TVA abducts him from his very own surprise party, brings him to Agent Paradox, which we're going to learn very quickly in the movie is basically off of the reservation, not really following the TVA rules, but basically doing his own thing because he's overseeing the Fox timeline, which could take 2,000 years to die according to him, based on this theory of an anchor character. And when a universe loses its anchor character, which in the case of the Fox X-Men timeline was Logan, then it slowly starts to die. This is a brand new concept introduced to the MCU and basically sort of similar to what they did with Molecule Man in Avengers Secret Wars, the storyline from 2015, Jonathan Hickman's run. But it seems like instead of having Molecule Man be the anchor in every universe, every part of the multiverse can have their own anchor. Again, with the Fox timeline, it was Logan. And of course, in his own ego, Deadpool eagerly accepts this, declares that he's Marvel Jesus, runs over to the camera, gives a quick aside and tells Fox to suck it and to F off, then gets suited up by their tailor and make sure to drop a key piece of dialogue that his katanas are adamantium now, because they know Marvel fans would absolutely lose their mind if some other metal was holding up to Wolverine's adamantium. And in his haste, Deadpool only then figures out that basically him getting to go to the sacred timeline means that his entire timeline is going to be ripped by a timeline ripper. As Paradox exclaims, that's his whole plan, to speed up this process, to which Deadpool has the quick idea to knock the TemPad out of his hand and go looking for a replacement Wolverine,
Yeah,
which
Wolverine,
brings us
yeah.
right back to where the movie started, with the TVA agents chasing him in the woods. Now, after he makes quick work of them, he says, I gotta find a new Wolverine, and starts off to find one. He says, cue the montage. The first Wolverine we're introduced to is Hugh Jackman's variant.
Yeah, he was short. He stand up. He said, "Come on." He stand up, boy. He was like this tall. I'm like, damn.
In a bar.
That shit was funny as hell.
But when he gets off of the stool to confront Deadpool, we see that he's comic accurate short. Deadpool even calls him out for this and is basically a gag. He's super, super short. It's hilarious. He then Jackman's Wolverine, but this variant is Patch. Deadpool even calls him by that name. The next variant we see is working on his motorcycle, smoking a cigar. We don't get the
and it was Henry Cavill.
full reveal of which Wolverine this is, but we do a little bit later in the montage. Then we see a super old Logan, probably old man Logan, sitting on the porch with a shotgun.
Oh yeah, but he shot his ass right in the chest.
Then we get some absolutely insane comic book imagery. It's Wolverine on what is a crucifix, or basically an X cross. It's from Fever Dream. That's Uncanny X-Men number 251, released in 1989. It's part of the House of X series. Then we get what I think might be one of the coolest scenes in the movie, and what I hope will be a nod to what they'll use as a costume in the future. We see Hugh Jackman in the classic yellow and
they saw Hulk. I don't know if that's the Hulk that we know of. Probably not, but yeah.
brown. He's about to fight the Hulk, and again, so much cool imagery, but this scene right here is an absolute classic. Now, the original for this image is Incredible Hulk 340, where it was Wolverine in the yellow and brown, and it was actually Gray Hulk. But they've redone this scene so many times with variant covers in the cartoons. This is some of the best imagery ever, and something I'm so pleased they put in the film. I just wish they would have shown us even 5 seconds, 10 seconds of this fight. Now, hilariously, Deadpool tries to give Hulk the same speech that Loki gave Hulk. He says, I am Marvel Jesus, you dull creature, and before he even has a chance to go any further, Hulk smashes him against the tree.
Yeah,
and he rewinds and goes back a couple of variants to the one working on his motorcycle with the cigar, and it turns out to be what Deadpool calls the Cavalrine. It's Henry Cavill.
Yeah, Henry Cavill, man.
As Wolverine, the ultimate fan service after so...
Yeah, because a lot of people want him to be the X-Men. A lot of fans want him to be the X-Men. So that's why they put it for y'all. This is it for y'all. Even though he ain't going to be but this is it for y'all, though.
So much fan art had put him in this role over the last 2 or 3 years. Deadpool tries to make a joke about Marvel treating him way better than DC. Cavill simply punches him through a wall, through a TVA 10-pad door, right to the Wolverine that becomes our Wolverine for the rest of the film. The one that's in the bar wearing his yellow and blue costume, or as Deadpool calls them, pajamas, underneath his civilian clothes. And he only finds that out because it looks like they're about to throw down, but then Wolverine basically grabs a bottle off the bar, drinks himself into a stupor, and when Deadpool goes to retrieve him to basically bring him back to the TVA, he realizes he's wearing the blue and yellow Wolverine costume underneath. Now, when they get back to the TVA, of course, Logan has no idea where they are. He's passed out when they get there, but they learn that this is basically the worst Logan, the one that doesn't qualify as a hero. Before earlier in the TVA, when the Logan that was the anchor for the Fox X-Men timeline was put on the screen, everybody stopped, had a tear in their eye. He was heavily revered. But this Logan, according to the TVA, is the worst Logan. And as Paradox says, he would have accepted any of them, but simply not this one. And of course, as they go to attack Paradox, he simply takes a TVA time stick and dumps them both in the void. Now, we have spent a ton of time talking about the Easter eggs in the void, so I'm only going to point out the most important ones. The very first trailer featured the Secret Wars comic book with Dr. Doom on the cover, obviously a nod to where this is all going, but the important part, while they're in the middle of their first fight, is that they're interrupted by a figure, which is one of the biggest cameos in the film. He's draped in...
Yeah, the biggest cameo people were trying to figure out, but they couldn't.
Mostly blue with a little accent of red, and Deadpool at first thinks that it's Captain America, but obviously this is a subversion of our expectation because it's not Chris Evans as Steve Rogers Captain America, it's Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, returning from his appearance as the character back in the old Fantastic Four.
That was in the OG day. They bring back the OG. They ain't right watch.
4 movies. Now, what's interesting is as this caravan of villains approaches, Pyro is a part of the villains, and when Johnny Storm decides to flame on, it's funny, Deadpool thinks he's going to say Avengers Assemble because he doesn't realize it's Johnny Storm yet, but when Johnny Storm flames on and shoots fire, Pyro simply counteracts that by absorbing all the fire, and they eventually get captured. That's only after Wolverine gets his rematch with Sabretooth, Tyler Mane's version of the character, and it's built up to be this huge rematch, and Wolverine basically ends it 1-2-3 by chopping off his head. And of course, we can't go without a parody joke from Deadpool referring to him as Queen Furiosa because of the Mad Max-ness of the caravan. Now, speaking of the caravan, and like I said, we've had tons of Easter egg breakdowns from trailers. We've had good shots of this now for months, but there are so many Easter eggs to previous MCU IP. We'll try to get them all real quickly. The first one is obviously the truck from Moon Knight and what a lot of people think was a scene taking place in Latveria. We also see several motorbikes there, which one of them is definitely from Captain America, the First Avenger. The other bikes could be Captain America's as well. We also see Red Skull's hot rod that has been sort of shifted to maybe mesh with what's Iron Man's first hot rod from Iron Man 1. It's definitely the Red Skull car, but it has a little Iron Man on the front trunk. We also see the silver Fantastic car for the Fantastic Four. And basically, all of this has been repurposed to be a part of their caravan, again, Mad Max style, but it's all Easter eggs from several different MCU and comic properties that make this up. Speaking of which, when we get to the base, we actually see that the base is not just Ant-Man, but it's all of Ant-Man. It's literally his entire skeleton laying there on the hill is Giant Man, which is their base. Now, on the way to meet Cassandra Nova, of course, they use Johnny Storm as an exposition dump. Just in case you haven't watched all the Marvel properties, they explain what the Void is. He actually talks about Reed Richards, his Reed Richards, explaining it basically as a metaphysical junkyard, which is interesting because Paradox also called it a trash heap. What's hilarious is when Johnny Storm actually name drops Goliath, Deadpool immediately knows that that's Loki Season 1, Episode 5, which is, you know, pretty meta. But this is
yeah, he said Loki, so you didn't watch Loki, hey, watch it.
Also the opportunity they use for Johnny Storm to tell Deadpool and Wolverine about the Resistance characters that are out in the borderlands of the Void fighting against Annihilation and fighting against Cassandra Nova. Speaking of which, we are finally introduced to Cassandra Nova as soon as they get to her base, and she explains pretty well what kind of villain she is. She is the equal and opposite to Professor X. She's his mum and dry, what they say in the comics, and in fact, Professor X could sense how evil she was in the womb and tried to strangle her. So she has all the power Professor X has, and how she sort of uses her hand to go inside their brains to see what's going on.
Nasty. She was going people's hands and shit.
Is so
under their skin.
Creepy. I think they did a great job of portraying this character, especially with her introduction. And the sort of gag here is that Deadpool immediately starts telling Cassandra Nova how much SHIT Johnny Storm was talking about her on the way there. And of course, the way she kills him is insane. She sucks.
Yeah, she's not like she like all that shit like a skeleton. I'm like, damn, just like that, and he did.
Skin off of his body. A fight breaks out, and Deadpool and Wolverine are able to escape. Now, this is really where we start to get that sort of road trip buddy cop of it all. The very first thing they do is run into Dogpool, and then the variant of Deadpool that we sort of thought was Champion Deadpool or Samurai Deadpool. Apparently, they referred to him as Nice Pool.
Yeah, Nice Deadpool.
He comes across as a total D-bag in the film, and of course, Deadpool only wants two things from Nice Pool. Wants to take Dogpool with him, and wants to take his gold-plated Desert Eagles. He's going to get his hands on both later in the film, but in the meantime, Nice Pool offers them a Honda Odyssey so that they can go seek the Resistance fighters out in the borderlands. This, of course, is a callback to earlier in the film where Deadpool said that Honda Odysseys effing suck. Now, of course, because Deadpool won't stop running his mouth, he pries too deep with Wolverine, and then Wolverine finally gives it back to Deadpool while they're driving the car and goes too deep, and then they tee up their second fight, which is way, way bloodier than the first. Basically takes place a majority in that Honda Odyssey to the point where they both basically wear each other out, knock each other out, and someone
they knock each other out all day, all night.
Comes and starts the car.
Cause they can't, you know what I'm saying, they regenerate, so they can't die type of shit unless, you know.
And drives off. Now we learn that that's X-23, and she takes them to the Resistance fighters base where we start to be introduced to the said Resistance fighters. One of them was Johnny Storm. The others are Elektra, played by Jennifer Gardner, returning from those original Daredevil movies with Ben Affleck. Then we get Wesley Snipes' Blade, who has some interesting things to say about Blade in just a second. We're going to get to that. And of course, none other than Channing Tatum, who was famously in line to play Gambit in his own solo film that never came to fruition. He famously was extremely upset about that. He finally gets his chance to play Gambit in full costume, and there's sort of a gag
Yeah, he was having fun with that. He was having fun with that actor.
Going on about how bad his accent is, and Deadpool even calls this out and asks if his dialect coach his minions, but also points out that Channing Tatum really just wanted to play the character by saying something along the lines of, "Are you sure that you just didn't want them to call you Gambit, but it never really happened?" And the fourth remaining member we're introduced to is X-23. Now, they all realize that Deadpool and Wolverine have been to Cassandra Nova's base and were able to escape, which gives them the idea that they might be able to mount some sort of offensive and actually persevere, with the idea that they have to get Juggernaut's helmet in order to avoid Cassandra Nova being able to get inside their minds, because the only other option they had, the Magneto helmet, well, they mention Magneto by name and say that he's dead. They also mention other Marvel heroes by name they say have gone up against Cassandra Nova and have died. They mention Punisher, Quicksilver, and Daredevil. Of course, everybody's in to mount this counter-offensive against Cassandra Nova, except for Wolverine, who's pretty convinced they're all going to die and goes out to drink alone by the campfire. That's when we get the scene from the latest trailer where X-23 goes out and explains that he was a hero. That's when he explains that he's wearing the yellow costume because Storm, Beast, Cyclops, they all wanted him to wear it, but he just couldn't because it would let them know that he actually wanted to be there, so he wears it as homage to them. And that's where X-23 gives him the impetus to say, hey, you were always like this until you weren't. You are a good person. And I'm guessing that's basically what gives him the kick to make sure that he's a part of the counter-offensive. You don't see him in the van as they're driving up to Cassandra Nova's base, which is basically Giant Man. He rolls out of the trunk once they're inside the base. Now, speaking of which, this is absolutely crazy dialogue. Maybe what I thought was the craziest line in the entire film. How they get into the base was Blade shoots one of Punisher's bazookas, and Deadpool asks Elektra point blank, which Punisher? There's been like 5 of them. To which Wesley Snipes' Blade says, there's only ever been one Blade, there's only ever gonna be one Blade, and Deadpool looks right at the camera. Now, I cannot believe they allowed that line in, because Mahershala Ali has been waiting patiently to play Blade since 2019.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. He been waiting for that motherfucking role for a minute, and they let his ass in the row. Mahershala Ali like, goddamn, you let his ass in the row, now I can't be in the row. Like, I've been waiting all the way to 20.
Here's Wesley Snipes in a film as Blade before.
That's what I'm saying, before Miss Mahershala Ali. I mean, wait, that's the OG though, but damn, they should at least have him in the shit.
Mahershala Ali ever got his film, saying that there's never going to be another Blade. Now, I don't know if this is some sort of inside Marvel joke that we don't.
Oh, they said, oh yeah, I heard that, yeah. But it's gonna be another Blade. They just, I mean, it's probably not, though. I don't know.
I don't know, maybe they are canceling Blade, maybe Wesley Snipes is the new Blade. I think this is just Wesley Snipes stirring the pot, and I cannot believe they allowed this line in the film, but hey, they did, and it's in there, and it's crazy. Now, obviously, once they get inside the base, a crazy action sequence ensues between all of these villains returning from the old Fox X-Men universe and the Resistance fighters, with the ultimate goal to get Juggernaut's helmet off and on Cassandra Nova's head so that they can prevent her from getting inside of their heads. But the double cross comes with Pyro, who's been working with Agent Paradox, and at Agent Paradox instruction is there to take her out because he is ultimately trying to get this Ripper done in time in order to purge the timeline. And as Elektra says, they send people there who don't cooperate or go quietly. That's why Agent Paradox is so worried about tying up the loose ends. And in a crazy twist of fate, when Pyro shoots Cassandra Nova after they've gotten Juggernaut's helmet on her head, Wolverine, in a show of compassion and for Charles, demands that Deadpool takes the
take that off. I'm like, oh my goodness.
helmet off. And I am just as shocked as I think the rest of the crowd was when we realized Cassandra Nova's actually going to help them. She references Doc.
Yeah, so she evil, but she's not that evil. Unless, I don't know. Like, she evil, but she ain't that evil, because she did help her ass. And then she stole a goddamn, the pen shit.
Strange as being an amateur magician and saying that she killed him and wore his skin around for 4 days, but takes out his sling ring, which has a time stone affixed to one end and a reality stone affixed to another, which probably explains how she's able to open up a portal from inside the void and send them back to their timeline, back to the 10,005 timeline, not the sacred timeline 616. And in fact, if you're wondering, the 616 was only visited right at the beginning of the film when Deadpool went there in 2018 to meet with Happy Hogan and try to join the Avengers. She sends them back to 10,005, but immediately follows them, realizing that there's been a double cross, because as she said, she's had an agreement with the TVA for quite a while, but Pyro indicates that Paradox is off for the reservation. He's not working within the TVA.
My name is Lucy, and I have to figure out who I am.
TVA's agreements and guidelines. He's just working under his own ambition, so she immediately follows them to 10,005 in order to accost Agent Paradox. And this is what starts basically the third act of the film, with probably one of the craziest action sequences that have been in a Marvel movie for a long time. It features the Deadpool Corps pouring out of a portal against Deadpool and Wolverine, and this is when we are finally treated to Wolverine putting on the cowl. Even though he doesn't have on shoulder pads, it is still totally worth it, and Wolverine and Deadpool go up against what seems like an infinite number of Deadpool variants, some of which I'm going to attempt to point out now during this video, but we will do a follow-up video once I can research every single variant and get several looks at the frames, because again, I'm doing this off notes off of just one viewing. Okay, first up we got the Deadpool kid from the original Deadpool Corps comic books that was voiced by Matthew McConaughey. Then you had Kid Deadpool, Headpool, Babypool, and Ladypool, again all from the original Deadpool Corps comics. Then there's Golden Age Deadpool, that's Earth TRN 245's Deadpool, whose Frederick Wheezy Wilson is his name. He actually snuffed too much mustard gas in a bid to avoid military drafting during World War I, was captured by the Germans and experimented on, which gave him his healing powers, but Wheezy, now with a permanent breathing... apparatus became a force for good. There was also featured Zenpool, who was created after Red Skull manipulated Professor X into inverting all the personalities of Marvel heroes. Then we see briefly Death Mask, which is Earth 11638, where Reed Richards actually cures Deadpool of a lethal brain tumor, but allows him to gain superhuman intelligence in that reality, and taking the name of Death Mask, Deadpool actually becomes that reality's Doctor Doom equivalent. We also see Ronan Pool in the group. He's Watari from Earth 11542, which takes place in the 17th century. We also see part of the group Deadpool 2099, or Warda Wilson, who's the daughter of Deadpool and the demon Sikla. Now this entire scene sort of ends in a really silly way, because Peter shows up in a Deadpool costume when we find out that every Deadpool has a Peter, the same way that Spider-Man has a guy in the chair, or the same way every Rick has a Morty. They all start cheering for Peter, and that allows Deadpool and Wolverine basically to just dip out. That moves to the last part of the film, where Cassandra Nova has now followed them over to the TVA and has gotten her hands on the Timeline Ripper. Now, Deadpool hilariously pulls an aside as soon as they get inside the TVA, looks at the camera, says it's the home stretch, turns back to Paradox and says, let's up the ante. And he explains that with her hands on the Time Ripper, she's mixing matter and antimatter on the actual full multiverse itself to erase everything except for the void. But he tells them that there's a chance if someone goes down to the core, and closes the loop between the matter and the antimatter, that they can reverse this and save everything, but of course at the peril of that one person. Deadpool and Wolverine make their way down to the core, and it seems like for a second it's going to be Wolverine who sacrifices himself. But that's when Deadpool pulls an Armageddon, if you guys remember that movie, throws Wolverine out the door and decides that he's going to be the one who's going to close the loop and get erased completely. Wolverine, of course, breaks in and helps him complete the loop at the last minute, and it's the two of them together holding on, closing the loop, a symbol for their friendship that actually ends up reversing the current, saving that main timeline.
Then they say this is not know how to go, to a new timeline. They go to the same timeline.
Sacred timeline, all of the multiverse, erasing Cassandra Nova, and ultimately leaving Wolverine in the 10,005 universe. So where Logan perished in that timeline, Deadpool and Wolverine are now back in that timeline, and as Hunter B-15, as she's arresting Paradox, explains whatever they did solved the problem. That timeline is no longer dying. And I didn't like the line because it seemed so cheesy at the time that their quote-unquote job is probably not done, just insinuating that they're going to be back around for Avengers Secret Wars. I also thought it was super interesting that at the end of this film, again, you don't see Deadpool and Wolverine come into the sacred timeline, the 616. They're squarely back in the 10,005 timeline. It's just that that timeline has now been saved. Down the road somewhere, they'll have to cross back over. Now, if you missed our video breaking down the post-credit scene, I'll make sure to link it at the end of this. And I'm sure there are a lot of Easter eggs that I missed with just my first passing. But at this point in the video, being 25 minutes deep, you guys let me know down in the comments everything you caught, all the little Easter eggs. I'm sure there are a ton of them. I am all ears as always. Quickly, with the giveaway stuff, guys, we're giving away a...
stuff. But anyway, man, like it up, man. Let me know what y'all watched it. Let me know how y'all feeling on the movie, man. Let me know how y'all rate it. I rated it 10 out of 10. Let me know how y'all rate it. But yeah. Alright, peace.